So these are the Aqidah wars, as I'm mentioning, and it's a strategy just to divide and conquer. It's a strategy to promote secularism. It's a political strategy. And that's why all of these attacks happened as soon as I said what? I said what Saudi Arabia is doing in terms of secularizing society and having these state-level Halloween celebrations. This is dangerous. This is bad. That's all I said. I just criticized Saudi Halloween, and then suddenly they all descended. Suddenly all the refutations of Daniel came. And the first thing I pointed out is the complete hypocrisy and double standards for these people to claim that, oh, Aqidah is so important, and you have to even understand and study the finer points of this book and that book and this book and that book. The hypocrisy for them to turn a blind eye to open secularization, open violations of Aqidah that are happening in the Gulf. And they're saying, no, Daniel, you can't talk about the rulers. You can't talk about the rulers. You can't criticize them. That is deviant, and you're a Khariji. You're a Khariji and you're a terrorist that has to be killed. That was literally their position. They're calling for my death. And who are they? These were the Madkhalis. These were the Madkhalis. And the whole point of the Madkhalis is to it's a part of the secularization program. It's a part of the Zionist project. And that's why we've identified the Madkhalis as the Muslim Zionists. They want you to just focus on these Aqidah debates, quote unquote Aqidah debates, about the Sifat of Allah, about Istighatha, about this or that. So that you're not concerned about, well, actually, aren't Muslims being genocided, and isn't this the whole country being secularized? Isn't like feminism running rampant because of these government programs in the Middle East and the Gulf? Like those natural reflections and inferences and conclusions that a normal religious Muslim will make. No, don't worry about that. Don't think about that. Just focus on Sifat. Just focus on Sifat and Istighatha and Tawassul and so the whole point is to direct religious Muslims to, instead of paying attention and dedicating mental energy and activism on these real issues, distract them to these apolitical topics. These apolitical topics. That's not correct. They're not apolitical because they're specifically selected, these issues, to interrogate the political opponents of Saudi Arabia. So specifically debate about Istighatha, specifically talk about this issue of the Sifat of Allah. Why? Because Saudi Arabia's political opponents, like Turkey, for example, or Iran, for example, or other Sunni states, for example, that are not aligned with Saudi, you start attacking them. You start interrogating them. You give them these Aqidah tests. Oh, these are deviants. These are kuffar, other Muslims, takfiring other Muslims. So it is inherently political, even those topics. But only direct those Aqidah tests and that kind of debate on those topics at the opponents of Saudi Arabia and the UAE and these Gulf allies. Don't direct it at these rulers. Don't direct it at Saudi Halloween or the fact that they're building like all of these Hindu temples, or that they're promoting the quote-unquote Abrahamic religion, the Kufr Abrahamic religion project. Ignore that. That's not relevant for Aqidah. So this has turned Salafism as a whole into a political agenda, a political program. And this goes all the way back to Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. It goes, and this is where the term Wahhabi comes from. And it was Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab that either himself or his followers weaponized this issue of Aqidah. And they used Aqidah testing as a weapon to attack the Ottoman Empire and to attack the inhabitants, the Muslims in Mecca and Medina, in Hijaz generally. And they used that, and the Saud family used that as a weapon to justify jihad. Jihad to invade. Jihad to attack, kill, and take the property of Ottomans or the inhabitants, the Muslims of Hijaz. And that's how Arabia became Saudi Arabia. So that strategy has continued to be politicized, has continued to be weaponized. And I should be clear here that I think that Salafism has a lot of great achievements, has a lot of important, beautiful features. One of the main things that we should all appreciate about Salafism is that it preserves a conservative Islam. It preserves Islamic tradition, strands of the Islamic tradition associated with Atharism and Hanbalism that predate modernism. So that's one of the great aspects of Salafism. The emphasis on Tawheed. This is so important because, yeah, there are Muslim groups that deviate. There are Muslim groups historically that have gotten into practices that step by step lead them into shirk, that lead them into following different bid'ah, innovations. This is the great aspect of Salafism. And I think we should all appreciate, I certainly appreciate it. And I take positions that are Salafi. In fact, when we talk about istighatha, you'll see. But the point is that it has also been, because it has had this strong ability to preserve traditional Islam, conservative Islam, it's a huge target for attack and infiltration. And that's what has happened. Political forces like the Saudi state have infiltrated Salafism and hijacked Salafism for their political purpose. And it has been weaponized in different ways. It was weaponized at the very beginning in the 19th century to take over the Arabian Peninsula, to kick out the Ottomans, to basically declare war on other Muslims. You declare war on the Ottomans. Why? Because, they're mushrik. They believe in istighatha. They believe in worshipping the dead. Therefore, they're kafir, mushrik, their blood is halal. We declare jihad on them, and we take, their women as booty, and we take their property as war booty. That's how these teachings have been weaponized, politicized. And today, Madkhaliism, as a strand of this wider Salafi phenomenon, has also been weaponized. For what purpose? To get Muslims to accept Israel, to get Muslims to accept Zionism. Don't criticize, guess what? The Palestinians are grave worshippers. The Palestinians are mushrik. That's why we don't care if Israel comes and takes their land. We prefer, because Jews are Ahlul Kitab, so we actually prefer them as opposed to these mushrik Palestinians, grave worshippers. That's the kind of arguments that they literally make. That's literally the argument that someone like Shamsi made right after October 7th. You think that Shamsi and these other clowns are talking like based on their own ijtihad, like because they're so brilliant? No, that's the script that they're handed by the Saudi state that wants to normalize and is on the cusp of normalizing with Israel. So this is the weaponization of Salafism, and this is a big problem. And it's such a big problem that, forget that label. I don't want to be associated with it. And I've been pointing this out over and over again. This is such a big problem. There needs to be cleaned house. This house of Salafism needs to be cleaned out from this cancer, from this disease. You're becoming into Muslim Zionists. Either you're tolerating it, you're staying silent about it, or you're promoting these people. So this is a disaster. And this is great news for these secular powers in the Gulf, these secular tyrants who want Vision 2030. This is great news. Their biggest opposition was Salafism, and they've completely discredited, completely neutralized Salafism. So if you're a Salafi, this should be a disaster. But did you really do enough to condemn and to disassociate from the Madkhalis?